wake up. Hey, you, wake up.
Hey, there you are. Time to chat some Broken Edge. Roll that intro. Welcome. My name is Critical your friendly neighborhood chaotic player.
Dude, I have to say a few things.
And Broken Edge enthusiast. This video is actually just going to be a talk session, mainly about the class changes I'd like to see in the future. Fair warning, this is going to be a longer video. Feel free to skip through some stuff, not like we were planning on already. Before I start off with just tearing apart each class, I'm going to talk about the classes that I feel are balanced right now and do not need changes. That being Samurai, Barbarian, Viking, and Pirate. Some of you may not agree with that, but right now these classes feel great to fight. Starting us off, we have Samurai. Pros. Highest skill ceiling in the game. In my opinion, this class is probably the hardest that Broken Edge has to offer right now. There is a large skill gap. It has high offense capabilities. This class is very dominant when being offensive. Players like Abriel tend to be very aggressive with it, and it works. It can zone on both of the blades, if it's done right. If you're playing main blade, you'd preferably like to one hand to get yourself some range, and on legendary, you of course have the extended range, and if you stick your arms out while swinging, you'll be able to zone. High speed cap, good wraps, a line wrapping tech. This class is pretty much got no speed cap, I think, and if you take some time and learn how to align wrap, this class is very good at getting around blades. Players that overcome the low defense have shown how strong Samurai can be, and players like GG have shown that if you learn how to overcome the defensive flaw, this class is very strong. Moving on to cons, this class is very open. Because of the awakening pattern, it's very difficult to defend yourself on Samurai, which is why it has a low defense. This class's defense is poor, it's very difficult to block your openings. It builds bad habits for players by making them rely on offensive plays to overcome the poor defense. Newer samurais tend to fall into the trap of just constantly being aggressive, and that does help with the poor defense, but it's best to eventually learn how to overcome that. Players will waste secondaries due to panic when dropping awakening. It takes time to get used to it, but this class has a very difficult awakening and you will drop a lot. If you watch some high level play, you will see that even they tend to drop their awakening. Next, we have Barbarian. Pros. Neutrals are nuts on this class, especially after watching Swordsmaster. You would see that neutral taps are very dominant this meta. This class is fantastic at zoning. Due to its range, it is very good at keeping your opponent back. It is good for high offensive players. Players that like to run or be aggressive into you will be easy to body tap due to them just running into your sword. In my opinion, this class has a higher skill ceiling for those who learn to zone properly. This class is a little bit difficult. It's definitely not super hard, but learning to move with your blade can be pretty difficult. It has a low speed, but if you learn to wrap, you can overcome your low speeds. This class is a little bit slower, definitely not super slow, but its wraps are what help it overcome its low speeds. Cons. It is a mid-tier awakening, not terrible, it's just in the middle of the pack. It struggles against classes with high speed caps and mobility, so classes like Viking and Ronin are really good against Barbarian. Low speed as mentioned earlier. If you get past its zoning, it's really hard for the Barbarian to recover. If you break through the range that the Barbarian has, it kind of makes it difficult for the Barb to maneuver its blade. Next, we have Viking. Pros, high speed cap. One of the high speed caps, it's really fast. A cutting demon. This class is really good at getting cut damage. High utility. It has 2 axes, both dealing awakening damage if used at the same time. Able to kind of neutral tap even with health bars. If you use it a certain way and watch that crappy Viking tutorial I made, you would know what I'm talking about. Very good neutrals, this comes along with the speed. Cons. It has to go behind its back for awakening. This is not super difficult to overcome, but it is a flaw. one of the lowest awakens in the game. Due to its fast speeds, it's gotta have a drawback in its awakening output. The shield kinda sucks butt sometimes. It's a little tricky to get your blocks, but it definitely works. Axes are hard to connect with. The axes with the long handle has a lot of surface to hit that will do 0 damage. Very difficult to get a good damage out of them. Zoning can counter this class if not played right. As said earlier, Viking is pretty good against Barbarian, but if you cannot learn how to space properly on this class, you will get zoned and lose. Tyrant. Pros. Very fast forward and back mobility. From what I found, the speed cap does not affect too much on moving back and forth. Neutral Tap Demon. The class that gave birth to neutral taps via Blaze Wand. Highest utility in the game. This class has 4 secondaries, 5 if you want to include its main blade. High cut capability. This class is very quick and very good at getting cut damage. Second highest skill ceiling. Due to all the material management and the low health and awakening, it makes this class pretty difficult to be good at. Cons. Slow side to side mobility. As said earlier, front and back isn't too strict, but moving your blade side to side on Pirate tends to be a little bit more punished on speed. It has the lowest awakening in the game. If you don't include first blades, this class has the lowest awakening. Sometimes it has to rely on secondaries to do heavy damage, and this is due to the lack in awakening. Due to this class's low awakening and its slightly fragile health bar, it tends to hurt really bad when you take awaken damage. Classes like Tyrant are very good against Pirates. These are some of the pros and cons I've had with these classes. I've had a lot of time in these 4 right now, and if you watch Swordmaster you would have seen. And recently I've been putting quite a lot of time into Barbarian. It's finally fun to play and play for the first time in a whole year, except the fact that neutral. Now, what about the other 5 classes, you might ask? Ronin, Tyrant, Knight, Duelist, and Persian. All of them either are or have issues, oppressive, or need some very necessary changes. Before you click off this video after what I just said, I would like to say the only really frustrating classes to fight right now are Duelist and Ronin. Knight is there because I want to talk about some changes it needs, not because it's unfair or anything, but because it feels really meh sometimes. Just listen to what I have to say before then. We will get to Knight soon. Sit tight. Starting us off with Tyrant. Overall, the class has been an oppressive class in the past, and it has received a lot of changes since its launch due to this. Since its birth, it's either been very unfair or really bad. It was mainly disliked due to its speed and edgebreaker flicks. Over a long period of trial and error, those have been toned down to a point where it's not too much of an issue. Currently, as much as I like to say this class is in a great spot, it's really not in my opinion. It's not overpowered like it has been in the past by any means, but it still has a few quirks that make it a little frustrating at times to go against. Those being the ability to switch grips at any given time without punishment, and neutral taps. I personally believe that overpowered things are okay in games as long as there are flaws to them. I believe things should have drawbacks to their strengths, especially a glass cannon. Yeah, sure, already having a fragile health bar is a drawback, but it's the output that is the problem. Even a cannon has to malfunction at some point. There was a reload, you have to put a cannonball in it, light the fuse, like cock a lever back. History is not my forte if you couldn't tell. My point is, there is a flaw to even the strongest of things. Tyrant is able to switch from half sword to two-handing in seconds without any drawbacks. There needs to be a penalty when switching grips. At one point, Tyrant did have a penalty, but the devs ruled it as a bug, and it was never talked about again. When this issue was present, almost all Tyrant players had lost all sense of how to play the class, and the class had become very skill-based in my eyes, and because of that, it should have been kept. Now you may be asking, Magno, how is that a bad thing? Why is that unfair? Well, let me tell you, when you switch grips like that and maybe wiggle a little bit, you will have max awakening. If you watched Swordmaster and watched Goosenheimer and Smokey, you would have seen that they flicked beyond belief. From my experience, I've almost never really blocked those types of hits, and when I have, they probably dropped awakening. That would mean it was a neutral tap, leading into my next current issue. Neutral taps. This issue is not just for the long swords, all classes have it. And funny enough, short swords can do it much faster, and will have more speed when doing so. Anti-run is less on shorter classes. Neutral taps have become a really big feature and mechanic of Broken Edge, but over time I've noticed how unfair it can be sometimes. To have your health bar broken, and then the next trade be your opponent flying at you, flailing the sword around to then kill you. The good thing about neutrals is you have to break their health bar to be able to kill with Zero Awakening. My issue is how fast it is, and how it can pretty much feel over when your opponent starts to show signs of attempting a neutral tap. The other flaw would be, well, you have Zero Awakening. If they do block it, you lose your health bar, or your sword, or your second wind, or whatever you have at that time. Now, after hearing that, you may think it's balanced, but when you see the speeds you can really go, it becomes a little less of a, oh, if I block it, I'll be fine, and more of a, oh, their sword is in the floor and I'm at a nub. I'm not blocking this. I actually don't really have any ways to balance neutral taps without giving an overall speed nerf to all the classes, which is 100% not needed. Do not nerf the speeds. But there should be more risk to attempting a neutral tap. Having Zero Awakening is one, but it doesn't mean it's blockable. Moving on from Tyrant neutrals, we have Persian, the other oppressive class. Now, this class on the surface does seem really balanced, and well, yeah, you would be right. But I'm going to talk about a suggestion that does not need to change. But I believe Persian might have issues in the future. To really get an idea as to where I'm coming from, I will list what I think Persian's pros and cons are. Persian. The pros. High speed cap, as mentioned with Viking, this class is a really high speed cap as well. It's a cutting demon, this class is great at getting cut damage. A really great defense, due to 2 swords and your awakening pattern, it's really hard to break through a Persian. High offense, this class with 2 swords once again is great at being aggressive and putting pressure on your opponent. It's in the middle of the pack for awakening, same as Barb, it's about 183, I might be wrong. It might have the best endgame in the game, lots of material in the end, especially with the 2 swords. It can deal with most of the classes, doesn't really have any solid counters to it, it's mainly skill that it will lose to. Cons. Everyone has a class that works for dealing with Persian, which is where it kinda sucks. Unless you have a solid grasp on how to deal with every class, you probably won't win all your fights. Although, let's think ahead into the next year. With these new blooming players, I imagine we'll have another dopey tater chip, who will be really good. Then, what if they put time into learning how to deal with every class? Would Persian be the issue? Or would it just be good because of one person? I'd personally answer both, because Persian would then be an issue due to one person, but it was done by one person, so it also was just good because of one person. It would definitely motivate others to have a vast knowledge of most of the classes to pick up Persian, but it would also mean that those players are just really good. Now, that is not what I'm here to complain about. It's the difficulty it takes to play this class. It has a moderately high skill ceiling that is built on all the knowledge you need to have on all classes, but not in its gameplay. I find the Awakening really easy, and its ability to overcome any situation when really behind strong. The survivability of this class is not an issue at all. It can be frustrating to deal with when you find yourself behind, but I feel that is the nature of dealing with Persian and should not change. The ease of Awakening is the issue in my opinion. Currently, some players have found a finicky Awakening style where you can just spin your wrist around and get about half Awakening. If you watch Swordmasters, you would have seen Kingsley do this. On Mainblade, this Awakening style is more present due to the lack of cat claw punishment, but on Legendary, it's about the same, just more arcing and a little bit slower and less cat claw. This has led to some really frustrating techs, such as spinning your swords around to tank Edbreakers with health bars, or an endgame just completely shutting down your opponent. This is not a change that I feel is a must right now, but it's definitely something to be brought to the table and talked about. I don't know if it's a speed cap that needs some changing, but it needs more of a complicated-ish Awakening requirement. Comments. Opinions. Make 'em. Ronin and Duelist. The problem class is a broken edge right now. Ronin and Duelist. These two have been murdering the player base for months, and even wrecking havoc in the comp scene. Players like Clean Cut, Faraway Rami, Cooties, whatever his name is, has really shown how dominant Ronin can be if you're willing to put the time into the class. And the return of Smokey a few months back, who showed Duelist to be a really strong class. So, why are these classes suddenly so dominant sometimes? Let me explain the reasons for this sudden power creep, at least in my eyes. Back in December last year, they made some changes to almost all of Duelist's Awaken requirements, being Step, Charge, and Focus Strike. Over time last year, there were some minor tweaks to Duelist that slowly made it this power creep, and those changes in December solidified Duelist into the meta. And ever since then, it's been this problem class. The step changes were really needed, but I don't believe the changes to the speed cap and charge were needed. Now that we have this really low charge, there is very little need to pause for axis and points. You can change like 10 times before charge even starts to do anything, I think. Focus Strike has become really frustrating to deal with since that last patch. Focus Strike is a speed cap that prevents you from attacking too quickly. The faster you strike, the less awakening. But with the changes in that December patch, it became a lot easier to attack with extreme speeds without having drawbacks to your awakening. To bring Duelist back into this more balanced state, they need to cut in half the buffs they did back in December. Leave the step changes, but half revert the other two. If Duelist feels really strong still, more could be done to the axis, but that is a requirement that is hard to change without changing the class's feel and making it hard to play again. For Ronin, most people want to say that the awakening changes were the issue to its slow climb to the top. But I think it's always been this really strong class, it's just more that people started to play it as they saw the awakening values climb. It's always been this flick out of sheath, run, max awaken, kill or trade playstyle. It's never been not doing that. Ronin speed cap should stay fast, high awaken or not, it fits the class aesthetic, and hasn't been the source of the issue. The issue resides in the ability to unsheath, resheath, being able to conceal the sword in the sheath, then flick it out at any given moment. Makes it really hard to predict and how the Ronin will attack. There needs to be flaws to the sheath, outside of taking 50 when hit. Because guess what they can do? Just flick it out when you target the sheath. I've been saying this since the launch of Ronin. The sheath should be a lot sturdier, there should be a much stickier effect the farther the sword is in the sheath. It shouldn't be able to flick out the sheath in any way until maybe about halfway out. Something like that, but I genuinely believe all the stats for Ronin are completely fine. Any comments to feel certain stats are too much, or anything that you feel would make Ronin less of a nuisance to fight, put it in the comments. I will reply with either an answer as to why I didn't talk about it, or if it's something I missed. Knights. There was nothing wrong with Knight. It's not quite overpowered, it's not completely useless, it's quite frankly mediocre at best. It's not a bad class to play, it's that it has a very undefined playstyle. First, he was the middle of the pack damage class, but a tank via HP 300. Although that was put on Barbarian a few patches back. Great change, but Knight lost a piece of itself with that change. After some time, Knight received some changes to make it more viable one-handed. Awaken buffs, easier alignment, and speed, I think. I believe these changes were made after Ronin's released, around the time Viking and Persian received their big changes after EBI 2023 summer. Due to these changes, it felt that Knight had just replaced Viking. It had more HP, and now can move faster with one hand, and it could of course two-hand. And it even had more awakening. Overall, around this time, I think Knight was a great class, but it came with a sacrifice from another class. Luckily, since those changes, Viking has slowly brought itself into a great spot again, but once again, Knight lost its shine. Knight is this hybrid class with no home. It's trying to be so many things at once. Bring Knight some definition. And that's it. That's the whole video. Yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope my biased takes on these classes wasn't too upsetting to you. If it was, let me know in the comments. Say your piece, the devs might be watching. Here is a little quote I came across recently, to maybe ease your hatred towards me. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. Marcus Aurelius. Let's hope for another great year of Broken Edge. I'll see you in Q. Bye!
You need to calm down, bro. Yeah, being pulled away again, dude. The demons, dude. They're getting him, bro. Bro. Yeah, they pulled him off, dude. What is happening? Dude, what is this? Okay, bro. I'm gonna hill shot him. Yeah, they're pulling him away, dude.
Oh my god! Why did that happen?
Yeah, his closet gremlin, dude, it pulled him into the closet. Came to get his socks, dude.
Oh my god.
What did he say? That's not.
All of them either are, have. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. For Ronin, most people want to say that the. Holy shit. For Ronin, most people want to say that the. Dude! Then flick it out and any. Dude. I've been saying this since the launch of Ronin. The Shithu. Bro. Something like that, but I genuinely believe all the stats for Here is a little quote I came across. I can't do this. This is so fucking terrible. I hate this shit. Here is a little quote I came across recently to maybe ease your pain. Okay, this is fucking. I hate that shit. Oh, I hate that shit.